Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. In this video we're going to build a simple Griffin application that will calculate the sine value of the number of seconds since the program was started. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first thing I'm going to add is a start element. If you double click when you place it, it'll immediately pull up the configuration options. I'm going to change the sequence number to 100. And now I'm going to add a DateTime element. I'm going to need this to calculate the time. Now you can move things with the arrow keys in Griffin. If you hold shift, they'll move in bigger increments, so I like to use that to keep everything nice and lined up. I'm going to rename this something helpful. I'm going to call it main because we're in the main thread here. And I like to add a comment to every block so that I can quickly find them. Every time you click OK from the element configuration, it's going to ask you if you want to update this reference. This basically means that anywhere else that this element is referred to, when you change the name, because remember I changed this name here, it's going to update it automatically. Usually that's what you want, but sometimes it's not, but in this case it is, although there aren't actually any other elements that refer to this one yet. Okay, next thing I'm going to need, I need a couple variables for my application. I'm going to put this in this constants element. This is a bit of a misnomer because you can rewrite these as much as you want. They're not necessarily constant, so I like to call them an array, and we'll call this config. I'm going to add a couple values. The first is going to be initialized, which is whether or not our program is initialized. That will start out as 0. And the second value will be start time, which is the time when the program started. So that's going to be all the configuration I need. Alright, next step is to put in an if block. This if block is going to see if the program has been initialized yet. Actually, it's going to check if we are not initialized. So that means if the array config.initialized value is equal to 0, we are not initialized. So now I have an if statement checking if we are not initialized. If we are not, we're going to go out this top port. We're going to do a couple initialization tasks, the first of which is to store the start time. So I'm going to, this is the area where you write the result, so I'm going to store it in the array config.startTime slot, and what I want is the current date time in milliseconds since 1970. Next step, once we're on this not initialized branch, is to toggle our initialization flag. So we're going to set array config.initialized to a value of 1. So when we first start the program, this is going to be 0. This if condition evaluates to true. We'll go to the top branch, and then after that we'll go out the bottom branch. So if we are initialized, there's a couple things we need to do. First, we need to calculate the amount of time since our program has started. So I'm going to rename this calc time elapsed. I only rename calculators if I'm going to be using them later. If you leave this as result, that means the value will be stored in calc time elapsed.result. That's how we'll access this value. So what I need here is our current date time minus our start time. And then since that's milliseconds, I'm going to divide by 1,000 to get seconds. And I'll just add a little helpful seconds notation to my comment here. Second thing I'm going to do is calculate the sine component. So this one we'll call it calc sine. And this is going to be sine of our time elapsed. Now you can type these names in just as easily. You may make a typo, which could be a problem, but sometimes it's quicker just to type them rather than use the variable selector. So you can just as easily type calc time elapsed dot result. That will work as well. And in order to get the sine scaled out a little bit more nicely for purposes of this demo, I'm going to multiply by an adjustment here. That's pi divided by 5, so that should give us a period of our function of 10 seconds. Okay, so that's pretty much everything we need for a simple demo application. Last thing I'm going to add is a plot to plot the sine value. I like to call these plot, call it plot sine. Max samples I'll set to 250. It's pretty much 1 per second, so it's going to give us about 250 seconds of display. And what I'd like to plot is calc sine.result. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and in the next video you're going to see how to run the application and take a look at the plots and displays that it generates. Thanks for watching.